Two French tourists have been kidnapped in Benin and their local guide killed. Sources have confirmed to France 24 the couple disappeared in Penjari National Park on Wednesday. 6 Palestinians are dead after an exchange of fire over the border with Israel, with 3 Israelis also reported injured. The flare-up in violence unravels a fragile ceasefire between the two sides. And Algeria reportedly arrests the youngest brother of former President Abdelaziz Bouteflika, along with 2 ex-spy bosses. Saïd Bouteflika was seen by many as the man pulling the strings as his brother's health failed. Hello and welcome back to the France 24 Newsroom. I'm Anka Ula. Thank you for joining us again. Well, first, some news just in. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro says 7 soldiers have been killed in a military helicopter crash. That news is developing. We will have more information for you as it comes into us here at the France 24 Newsroom. Moving on, sources speaking to France 24 have confirmed that 2 French tourists who went missing in Benin on Wednesday have been kidnapped and their safari guide has been killed. The couple was expected to return to their hotel on Wednesday evening in Penjari National Park on Benin's border with Burkina Faso. Now, Burkina Faso has suffered repeated attacks by Islamist militants in recent months. Claire Rush has the story.
It's in Benin's Penjari National Park that 2 French tourists and their Beninese guide were kidnapped, several sources have confirmed to France 24. Their car was reportedly found, burned, in the town of Diapaga in neighboring Burkina Faso, some 100 kilometers away. Authorities have also allegedly found the guide's body. The French couple's disappearance was announced by diplomatic and security sources on Friday, 2 days after they went missing. The couple had been expected to return to their hotel in the park, but never arrived. Penjari Park is located in northwestern Benin, near the border with Burkina Faso, in a remote region hard hit by increasing militant violence. In February, in Burkina Faso, 4 customs officers and a Spanish priest were killed, a sign, according to analysts, that the militant violence that slammed the Sahel region to the north may be spilling over into West Africa, a region once considered relatively stable.
Moving on, an exchange of fire on Israel's border with Gaza turned deadly. Gaza authorities say that 4 Palestinians were killed by Israeli airstrikes this weekend, including a pregnant woman and her baby. Gaza residents have added that 2 more people are dead. Israel was responding to some 250 rockets fired from Gaza into Israeli towns and villages from Friday through Saturday, which injured at least 3 people on the Israeli side, including an 80-year-old woman. Catherine Clifford has details.
Israeli police say this footage shows damage to a home hit by rocket fire from Gaza, while other rockets hit open areas, and its air defenses intercepted dozens in the skies above the southern town of Ashkelon. The Israeli army said it had targeted rocket launchers and military posts used by Hamas as it retaliated with airstrikes and tank fire. The exchange brings an end to a month-long lull in violence. Tensions have been rising in recent days. The exchange of fire comes after 2 Palestinians were fatally shot by Israeli forces during this Friday's weekly protests along the Israel-Gaza perimeter fence, when Palestinian militants also shot and wounded 2 Israeli soldiers. In response, Israeli aircraft carried out retaliatory strikes that killed 2 Hamas militants. Palestinians have held regular demonstrations along the Gaza border for more than a year, calling on Israel to ease its blockade. At least 270 Palestinians have been killed by Israeli fire since the protests began in March 2018.
Tropical cyclone Fani made its way from India into Bangladesh on Saturday. The strongest cyclone to hit India in 5 years has killed at least a dozen people there and at least 5 others in Bangladesh, with more than 1 million evacuated across the region. Authorities warn the death toll could rise as communications come back up as well. Now, more than 1,000 houses have also been damaged in Bangladesh as the storm was downgraded to a depression by India's meteorological department on Saturday. Heavy rains are persisting in the region. Reports coming from Algeria of a high-profile arrest within former President Abdelaziz Bouteflika's inner circle. His youngest brother, Said Bouteflika, seen by many as the man behind the curtain in recent years, has reportedly been detained, along with 2 former spy chiefs. And those reports are not confirmed by Algeria's police or the army. Meanwhile, Algerians have continued their anti-government protests for an 11th straight week, demanding an overhaul of the entire ruling elite. Camille Delec has the story.
He was the power behind the throne. But on Saturday, Algerian media said Said Bouteflika was under arrest. He was the powerful guiding hand of Abdelaziz Bouteflika's regime, especially after his older brother was weakened from a stroke in 2013. He was tipped to become his successor. If confirmed, the arrest comes as Army Chief Ahmed Gaid Salah tries to show protesters that he's cracking down on corruption and getting rid of the old regime. They were on the streets for the 11th consecutive week on Friday, and their message was clear. They wanted Said Bouteflika gone. There were reports that 2 other senior figures of the Bouteflika regime were also arrested. General Afman Tartag, the head of the security services, who resigned on the 2nd of April, the same day that Bouteflika stepped down, and General Mohamed Medine, who headed the security service for 25 years until he was fired in 2016. He'd been publicly accused by General Ahmed Gaid Salah of plotting against the army and warned to stop. It's a second fall from grace for the man that was once called the God of Algeria. Several businessmen and former senior figures are also behind bars. But Gaid Salah will have to wait until next Friday to see whether his crackdown really is enough to placate the protesters.
And staying in Africa, police in Democratic Republic of Congo have dropped a summons issued for opposition leader Martin Fayulu. He's accused of inciting ethnic violence during a rally last weekend. Fayulu still contests the December 30th presidential vote, saying he is the rightful president and not Felix Tshisekedi. He was, quote, invited to answer questions by police on Monday regarding an official complaint lodged against him by a member of the Luba ethnic group, which President Tshisekedi belongs to. Police say the summons was dropped to preserve public calm. Let's just quickly update you on that story from Venezuela we mentioned at the top of the bulletin. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro says 7 soldiers have been killed in a military helicopter crash. The crash took place close to the capital, Caracas. That's where the helicopter took off from as it was heading to the west central state of Cojedes. Authorities are investigating the cause of that crash. Now, we will be following the story for you as it develops here on France 24, so do stay tuned. Now, in Venezuela, the power struggle between President Nicolas Maduro and opposition leader Juan Guaido intensifies as international parties get involved. Maduro has urged his troops to be ready for potential military action by the United States, after Secretary of State Mike Pompeo raised the prospect of sending troops to the country to support Guaido. Claire Rush has more.
In the Venezuelan capital, Caracas, these opposition protesters have come to deliver a memo to soldiers. In it, they call on the military to abandon President Nicolas Maduro and join the ranks of opposition leader and self-proclaimed President Juan Guaido, to no avail.
Nosotros intentamos leer la carta para que ellos supieran cuál era el contenido y los militares se negaron de una manera déspota, pero no importa, nosotros estamos acostumbrados a eso.
On Saturday, hundreds of Venezuelans responded to Guaido's call to peacefully protest at their nearest military base. For several days, opposition supporters have sought to get the army on their side, a move supported by the U.S.
To the people of Venezuela, the United States sees your courage in action. We see you proudly reclaiming the freedom and democracy that is rightfully yours. We admire you. We stand with you. The time for transition is now.
Meanwhile, Maduro sought to rally troops and reinforce their support for him. During a visit to a military base in the northwest, he urged soldiers to be ready for potential U.S. military action.
Y de estar listos y prestos para defender la patria con las armas en la mano si algún día el imperio norteamericano osara tocar esta tierra.
For now, the army has largely remained loyal to Maduro. Guaido has promised amnesty for members of the armed forces who join his cause. But the country's chief prosecutor has threatened jail for defectors, issuing 18 arrest warrants for civilian and military conspirators involved in an anti-government uprising on Tuesday.
Well, North Korea's state media reported that leader Kim Jong-un has supervised a live fire drill this Sunday of what they called long-range multiple rocket launchers and tactical guided weapons. And this comes a day after South Korea's military detected the North launching several unidentified short-range projectiles into the sea. The launches come after the failed summit earlier this year with the United States over the North's pursuit of nuclear bombs that can accurately target the U.S. mainland. Here in France, Yellow Vest protesters took to the streets for another Saturday. The French Interior Ministry counted a total of 2,600 participants at 3 events in Paris and just under 19,000 across France, a new low for the movement. Now, 6 months after the start, the anti-government protesters are changing tack and heading to Brussels, with 3 Yellow Vest lists set to run in European elections at the end of the month. Valérie Descamps has more.
From roundabouts to ballot boxes, after months of protests, 3 Yellow Vest lists have entered the race for the upcoming European election. Yellow Alliance, created by French singer Francis Lalanne, Citizen Initiative Movement, and Citizen Evolution, led by Christophe Chalençon, one of the movement's well-known faces. He presents himself as a radical politician and an alternative to traditional parties.
All political parties are out of touch. None of them manage to harness the movement, which means that today French people, citizens, want a different approach.
Others have joined the ranks of seasoned politicians. Florian Philippot, head of the far-right Patriots Party, and former presidential candidate Nicolas Dupont-Aignan both welcomed Yellow Vest candidates. A total of 5 lists now claim to represent the movement. This after Yellow Vest leaders failed to form a cohesive group.
It was unthinkable that a homogeneous political ideology could ever come out of this movement.
22 days before the election, Yellow Vest candidates have struggled to gain momentum.
Right from the start, the movement rejected any kind of organization. They have rejected every form of compromise, dialogue, or representation, so any political outcome is extremely unlikely.
Far-right politician Marine Le Pen and Jean-Luc Mélenchon, leader of the ultra-left France Unbowed party, both feared the emergence of a Yellow Vest list. But for now, their influence remains limited.
Well, finally, let's take you to Thailand, where King Rama X has been crowned in an elaborate, centuries-old royal ceremony that was last held almost 7 decades ago. Day 2 of the 3-day coronation process has begun at the Grand Palace. Here are the latest images from there. The ceremony will give him the legitimacy of being a fully sovereign king.
At the very top of the staff, you can see a small figurine, a small statue.
A royal audience, the first for newly coronated Rama X. The new Thai king appeared before members of the royal family and officials, including leaders from the country's military junta, currently in power. From his golden throne, he called for unity in a country that remains largely divided. This after recent elections pitted the military against the opposition.
In this occasion, I invite everyone here and all Thai people to share my determination and work together, each according to his status and duty, with the nation's prosperity and the people's happiness as the ultimate goals.
The ceremony began with purification at 10:09 a.m., a time chosen by royal astrologists. Water from 9 sacred sources across the kingdom rained down on the new king, the first step in his transformation from royal to living god. Dressed in his full royal uniform, the king finally ascended his throne, placing the 7-kilogram great crown of victory upon his own head. Brahmins present him with the rest of the royal regalia, a wooden scepter, and a stone-encrusted sword. The king's new wife, Queen Sithita, was also anointed. Riding on a golden throne, the new king was carried by men towards the Temple of the Emerald Buddha in Bangkok, where he later proclaimed himself the royal patron of Buddhism. 95% of people in Thailand are Buddhists, making Buddhism the country's primary religion.
That's it from the newsroom. We leave you now with the latest images from the Thai king's coronation.